Welcome back to online classes. Today's topic for the discussion is water chemistry. It comes under module 4. So all of us aware that about 71% of the earth's surface is covered with water, and water is an essential component of the life of the earth. Also, water is used for the various applications like industrial application, agricultural activities and domestic usage. So hence we need to study more about this water and its problems. So the water is distributed in a several form on the earth's surface, but all 71% of water is not available for our usage. So let us see how exactly the water is distributed on the surface of the earth. About 97% of the water is saline water. That means it is present in the form of a ocean. It can't be used for any of our applications like domestic, industrial or agricultural activities. Hardly 3% of water is considered as a fresh water. All this fresh water once again is not ready for our usage. The reason behind this is this 3% is not readily available in the liquid form. Some quantity is in the solid form, the rest is in the liquid form. Around 68.7% of this fresh water, it is in the form of a ice cap or glaciers, and 30.1%, it is considered as a groundwater. Hardly less than 1%, is in the other form. Out of these 1%, so we have an access to only 0.3% of fresh water. That means the quantity of water it is ready to use for our daily activities, industrial, agricultural or domestic usage is only 0.3%. And this 0.3% is called as a surface water. So there are different types of the surface water like rainwater, river water, lake water and sea water. So rainwater, it is considered as the purest form of water. Mainly it contains dissolved gases or suspended solid particles. A river water. River flows from one place to another. While doing so, it carries several minerals along with, such as chloride, sulfate, bicarbonate of sodium, calcium, magnesium, iron, etc. Not only this, these are the inorganic substances. It also contains the organic matter and small particles of sand and soil. Coming to the lake water, the lake water contains less dissolved minerals but high quantity of organic matter. So from where there is organic matter means the lake ecosystem, the lake consists of several aquatic life, aquatic plants and aquatic animals in it. The dead leaves of the plants are algae. It will undergo the oxidation in the later stage. So it will cause impurity to the water. That's why we call organic matter. Even the aquatic animals, if it is dying in the same area, so that also undergoes oxidation. That is considered as the organic matter. Coming to the sea water, it is the most impure form of natural water source. It contains nearly 10,000 ppm of salt in it, sodium chloride. It contains nearly 10,000 ppm, we can imagine. So 10,000 ppm of salt in it. Also it contains bicarbonates of calcium and magnesium and potassium sulfate, potassium chloride, etc. So the other 30.1% of water, it is underground water we have mentioned. It is in the form of a spring water or a well water. That's how the water is distributed on the surface of the earth. So from this we understood that we have an access to only 0.3% of fresh water. So again, the raw water or a natural water cannot be used as such due to some impurities present in it. The common impurities of water is classified into three groups called as physical impurity, chemical impurity and biological impurity. Physical impurity means the color of the water, turbidity of water, taste of water and odor of the water. See, normally the water should be transparent, clear, free from taste, tasteless and colorless, odorless and free from the pathogenic bacteria. These are the physical parameters. So water should be colorless, transparent in nature, tasteless, odorless and free from the pathogenic bacteria. If any such thing is there, that causes a physical impurity. For example, water is turbid. When the water becomes turbid, if it is contaminated by some organic impurities or a colloidal silica is present in higher concentration or a silt is present, it becomes more turbid in nature. And how the water becomes color means it is because of the industrial activities. Some industries like dyeing industry, textile industry will be discharging the wastewater into the running water bodies. When such waste is getting mixed with the surface water, the water becomes colored in nature. And taste. The taste of the water is because of certain salts or ions present in it. Anions like OH minus, hydroxyl ion, bicarbonate ion, carbonate ion. All these will impart bitter taste to the water. Odor. Sometimes the water is having specific odor like pungent odor and rotten smell, all these because of certain gases present in it. This is called as a physical impurities. So here we have listed some of the chemical and organic impurities. Coming to the first one, that is dissolved gases. So common gases that are dissolved in a water are carbon dioxide and oxygen. So minimum 8 ppm of oxygen must be present in a raw water for the aquatic life. And carbon dioxide, because of the respiration of the aquatic animals, carbon dioxide will be released into the water body. That's how the carbon dioxide will be available in the water. So the other gases like ammonia, hydrogen sulfide and oxides of sulfur, if the heteroatoms like nitrogen and sulfur are present in the water body, it may lead to the formation of the ammonia, hydrogen sulfide and oxides of sulfur. They give a specific odor or a bad odor to the water sample. Coming to the second impurity, suspended impurity. So suspended impurity means it is inorganic salts such as clay, silica and oxides of iron causes a suspended impurity. So these are the fine particles suspended in the water. They won't form a precipitate. At the same time, they will not float on the surface. Along with this, even the wood disintegrated part of a dead animals also will lead to the suspended impurity. They will be like a colloidal substances moving in the water, suspended in the water. Coming to the next impurity, that is microscopic impurity. Microscopic means we can't see through our naked eye, such as bacteria, virus, other microorganisms, algae and fungi. These are called as microscopic matter or microscopic impurity. Generally, it leads to waterborne diseases. So the common waterborne diseases are typhoid, cholera, amoebic dysentery. So that's the reason the water should be free from these type of things. Moving on to the next type of impurity, very important one. This plays a crucial role in industrial application of the water. That is dissolved mineral salts. So the water will be rich with carbonates and bicarbonates of calcium, magnesium, or it will contain chloride and sulfate of calcium and magnesium, as well as oxides of iron and oxides of lead. So these are the possible mineral salts that are dissolved in a water. Hence it is called as dissolved mineral salt impurity. Moving on to the organic impurity, the vegetable and animal matter, if it is mixed in a water source, it will undergo degradation or oxidation. Not only this, along with this, the plant and animal parts undergo degradation. That's called as the organic matter. The last impurity is a colloidal impurity. The colloidal impurity is like protein, amino acid, ferric hydroxide, clay, etc. So these are all causes impurity to the raw water or naturally available water. So moving on to why we need to study these impurities means, so we know the usage of water. Water is used for various applications like domestic application, industrial application, agricultural activities. Hence, one should keep these points in mind before using the water for a particular application. So the first application is use of water in the boiler. So water is used in a boiler for the production of a steam is called as a boiler feed water. Repeat. So water feed into the boiler for the production of steam is called as boiler feed water. So normally if you consider the thermal power station and nuclear reactor, the fuel used in a thermal power station is a coal, and the fuel used in a nuclear power station is the uranium Repeat blend. So combustion of the fuel produces a heat energy. The heat energy is used to convert the water into the steam. Later the steam will be used to run the turbine. From that electricity will be produced. So for the production of the electricity in the thermal power station and nuclear power station, the boilers are used. So this boiler feed water should satisfy certain parameters like it should be having less than 2 ppm of hardness. So the hardness of the water must be less than 2 ppm, as well as the concentration of the dissolved gases in this should be less than 0.2 ppm of oxygen or 0. Less than 1% of carbon dioxide. I'll repeat again. So here the dissolved salts such as bicarbonates, chlorides and sulfates of calcium and magnesium must be less than 0.2 ppm. Oxygen, dissolved oxygen, the DO oxygen must be less than 0.2 ppm, and carbon dioxide must be less than 1 ppm. This is carbon dioxide. The first one is hardness. Hard water or a hardness. So it should be less than 2 ppm. So if it is not meeting these parameters, such water cannot be feed into the boiler. If we do so, it leads to several problems. That is the reason all the boilers are equipped with another instrument called as ion exchanger. So what is the role of these ion exchanger means? So it softens the hard water or it removes all the ions present in a water and make the water soft. It converts hard water into the soft water. So the boilers must be equipped with ion exchanger. It satisfies the parameters specified for the boiler feed water, such as the hardness must be less than 2 ppm, dissolved oxygen must be less than 0.2 ppm, as well as carbon dioxide must be less than 1 ppm. If it is not satisfying, a raw water is filled as such into the boiler, then it leads to several problems like boiler troubles. So let us discuss the different boiler troubles. The first boiler trouble is scale and sludge. So what is the scale means? If the water sample is having high concentration of calcium bicarbonate, magnesium bicarbonate, calcium sulfate, magnesium sulfate, etc., it will lead to a formation of a thick, hard and adherent precipitate on the inner wall of a boiler. This is called as a scale formation. A thick, hard, adherent precipitate formed on the inner wall of the boiler is called as a scale formation. If, on the other hand, if the precipitate is loose and slimy, and it is suspended in the boiler feed water, so it's not floating, it's not settling. A loose and slimy precipitate suspended in the boiler feed water, it is called as a sludge. So that means the water which is taken for the production of steam in the boiler is not meeting the parameter specified. It might lead to a problem of scale and sludge. Scale is nothing but a very thick, hard and adherent coating present on the inner wall of a boiler. Sludge means a loose and slimy precipitate suspended in the boiler feed water. So this is called as a sludge. So what are the problems it will cause if the water is having the dissolved salts in it? So intentionally nobody is retaining the salts in the water, but during the boiler operation itself the problem occurs. That means though we are using a soft water, that means water is having a hardness less than 2 ppm, we are feeding into the boiler and boiler is operated at a high temperature. There are two types of boilers. One is called as low pressure boiler, the other one is called as a high pressure boiler. So both will be giving out the precipitate of a calcium carbonate and calcium hydroxide. So here, if the water sample is having the calcium bicarbonate, so how the bicarbonate comes here? We will be using a soft water. Soft water means the concentration of this type of salts is less than 2 ppm. Continuous operation of the boiler will help in the production of the steam, leaving behind the dissolved salt. Salt cannot evaporate out, it left behind in the boiler. If this precipitate is not removed periodically, so the concentration of this will keep on increasing. At one particular stage, it decomposes to give you a calcium carbonate, carbon dioxide and water. This calcium carbonate becomes a precipitate, a solid, and it will be adhering to the inner wall of the boiler. So it will become a thick precipitate on the inner wall of a boiler. If it is a high pressure boiler, instead of the carbonate, it will be the hydroxide of the calcium. So if it is a low pressure boiler, calcium carbonate precipitate is adhering to the inner wall, whereas a high pressure boiler means it forms the calcium hydroxide. Even calcium hydroxide will adhere to the inner wall. Continuous deposition of these salts will lead to the scale formation. Similarly, the other substance responsible for the scale is a calcium sulfate. So let us see how this calcium sulfate is going to affect. So calcium sulfate is readily soluble in a cold condition. Cold condition. So that means the water is cold. Boiler is not operated. Nearly 3000 ppm of the calcium sulfate is readily soluble in the cold condition. If the temperature of the water is increasing in the boiler, say the temperature becomes around 300 Kelvin, the dissolution of this calcium sulfate decreases. Hardly 15 ppm of the calcium sulfate dissolved in the boiler feed water, the rest will precipitated out. That calcium precipitate once again get adhere to the inner wall of the boiler and convert itself into the scale. That's how the calcium sulfate is also responsible for the scale formation. Moving on to the third type, hydrolysis of magnesium chloride. So boiler feed water is having a magnesium chloride. So at high temperature, when the boiler is operating at a high temperature, it hydrolyzes to a magnesium hydroxide. This is also becoming a thick precipitate. So continuous operation of the boiler, day by day the thickness of the deposited salts will keep on increasing. That one we are calling it as a scale. Finally, silica or colloidal silica also responsible for the formation of a scale. So what the colloidal silica does? This colloidal silica at high temperature combines with this calcium or a magnesium ions to get convert itself into a very hard calcium silicate and magnesium silicate. This is also adhering to the inner wall. Overall, the scale formation takes place. So these are some of the reasons for the scale formation. So if the scale is formed on the inner wall of the vessel, definitely it is going to affect the boiler vessel as well as the operation of the boiler. Both will get affected. The production of the steam will be decreased. So the production of electricity also decreased. That's why this problem should be taken care. So how to overcome these problems we will see in the next slide. So the disadvantages of the scale. We know that the scale is a very hard sticky mass present on the inner wall of the boiler. It is going to act as a very bad conductor of heat and electricity. That's the reason there will be a huge waste of fuel. So wastage of fuel or loss of fuel takes place due to the scale formation. The second problem is, so the scale formation is happening in the inner wall of the boiler means the water cannot be converted into the steam at a normal temperature, general temperature. Say at 300 Kelvin, the water transformed to the steam. If there is a scale, little more higher temperature need to be supplied, then only the steam will be produced. While doing so, extra temperature is supplied. That means you are heating to a little more higher temperature means that time the boiler metal get destructed. The boiler metal becomes weak or it get destructed. Continuous scale deposition will also lead to the choking. And the last one, this scale formation will show or have a minute hairline crack. A continuous operation of the boiler will increase the size of the crack. There will be a progress in the widening of the crack. Due to this, the steam will be moving out of the boiler, and overall, since it is operating at a very high pressure, the boiler will be under very high pressure. If there is a leakage in the boiler vessel, that leads to boiler explosion. So these are the problems of the scale, and how to take care of this means as and when the scale is formed, that means periodically it is necessary to clean the boiler. So what is the procedure for cleaning means, take a scraper and remove the scale with the help of a scraper if it is soft. If the scale is very hard, high thick density and very hard, so it will not be removed by the scraper. In such situation, we have to use a hammer. Hammering should be performed. By hammering also it is impossible to remove means, move on to the next technique called as a thermal shock. The meaning of a thermal shock is the boiler should be heated to high temperature. Suddenly it should be cooled and cold water is poured over it. All the salts stuck on the wall will be get dissolved. Then throw out that water. The next method is the boiler should be cleaned with very dilute acid like 5 to 10% HCl so that all the carbonates of calcium can be removed. But if it is precipitated in the form of a calcium sulfate, it is insoluble in a HCl, it cannot be removed. Hence, followed by the acid treatment, it is necessary to clean the boiler with EDTA solution also. What is the role played by this EDTA means? EDTA is called as a chelating agent or a complexing agent. Once it is added to the boiler, the calcium and magnesium ions represented by M easily forms a bond with the EDTA and becomes a metal EDTA, a solution it is. No more precipitate, it becomes a solution. EDTA takes away all the calcium and magnesium ions which is stuck on the boiler vessel. Hence, the boiler will be free from the precipitate. The last technique, remedial technique is blow down process. Blow down process means these precipitates will be sometimes settling to the bottom. From the bottom of the boiler, it is discarded or thrown out continuously as and when the precipitates are moving to the bottom, like a slurry it will be present, it should be thrown out. If the slurry is not removed, then it becomes a thick precipitate and it will stuck on the wall of the vessel. So this is how the scales can be removed. So in the previous slide we understood that what is a sludge. A sludge is nothing but a loose and slimy precipitate. It is suspended in the boiler feed water. That's called as a sludge. So the main reason for the sludge formation is bicarbonates, chlorides and uh, carbonates and chlorides of calcium and magnesium are responsible for the sludge formation. So what is the disadvantage? How the sludge is affecting the boiler operation means, let us see in the next slide. Similar to our scale, sludge is also bad conductor of heat and electricity. As a result, there will be a wastage of heat and fuel. And this sludge entrapped in the scale and thickness of this will be increasing. Hence, it decreases the boiler efficiency. That means higher temperature is needed for the production of the steam. And later on, if the sludge is setting and the slow circulation of the pipes, you can see the choking or blockage of the pipes. That means the diameter of the pipe will be decreased. The flow of water will be restricted. So moving on to the prevention or remedial technique. So better to use a soft water and periodically checking the boiler feed water. Ensure that it is free from these type of inorganic salts. And the best remedy is blow down process. That means the sludge will be moving towards the bottom of the boiler due to the gravity when it is operated at a high temperature and pressure. And periodically from the bottom of the boiler it is thrown out or discarded. That's how the boiler can be taken care. So this is the first boiler trouble. Moving on to the next boiler trouble. Priming and foaming is not there in the syllabus. We no need to discuss. Moving on to the second one, a boiler corrosion. So under corrosion science chapter, we learnt the definition of the corrosion. Nothing but a destruction of a metal when it is kept in a suitable corrosive medium due to chemical or electrochemical reaction. That is the definition of a corrosion. Destruction or deterioration of a metal when it is kept in a suitable corrosive medium due to chemical or electrochemical attack is called as a corrosion. What is boiler corrosion means? It is also similar to the same. Destruction of the boiler metal due to chemical or electrochemical attack of the dissolved salt and the dissolved gases. Under the impurities, we understood that the possible impurities of the water are dissolved gases, dissolved impurities and organic impurities, etc. So what are these dissolved gases means? It can be oxygen or carbon dioxide, and dissolved salt means it is a magnesium chloride. So we need to study the boiler corrosion due to three things. One is dissolved oxygen, the second one is dissolved carbon dioxide, the third one is magnesium chloride. So what is this means? The amount of dissolved oxygen that must be present in a natural water body is 8 ppm for the life of the water body. Whereas for the boiler feed water, the amount of dissolved oxygen must be less than 0.2 ppm. This is the permissible limit. Amount of oxygen permitted in the boiler feed water is less than 0.2 ppm. So if the concentration of this dissolved oxygen is more than this, then it will attack the boiler metal. Day by day operation of the boiler, if the oxygen level is increasing by some means, if it is not taken care, so then it will attack the boiler metal. So the boiler metal is an alloy of iron. So oxygen present in the water called as a dissolved oxygen. So it is going to attack the boiler metal at a high temperature and pressure. It will give you a rust. That means Fe2O3 3H2 hematite. Metal back to the ore. Destruction of a metal due to dissolved oxygen. So how means if the concentration of the oxygen in a boiler feed water is more than 0.2 ppm, so at high temperature, it will attack the boiler metal, converts the metal into the oxide. This oxide, we call it as a rust. So how to overcome this problem means periodically the quality of the boiler feed water should be checked. That is the duty of a technician. Boiler technician will take care of this. If the concentration of oxygen is exceeding, immediately a calculated amount of sodium sulfite is added to the boiler feed water. So this is called as a chemical method. There are two different ways to take care of this problem. One is a chemical method, the other one is a mechanical method. So I am talking about the chemical method. A calculated amount of the sodium sulfite is added to the boiler feed water. So the excess oxygen oxidizes the sodium sulfite into sodium sulfate. So the free oxygen, dissolved oxygen will not be there. The excess dissolved oxygen oxidizes the sodium sulfite into sodium sulfate. So it is soluble substance. It's not a precipitate. That is why there is no harm. Similarly, there is one more thing, adding hydrazine. Hydrazine is N2H4. So calculated amount of hydrazine is added to the boiler feed water so that oxygen oxidizes this into nitrogen and water. The problem of a dissolved oxygen can be avoided. There is one more method called as a mechanical method where we make use of a deaerator. That means the deaerator is nothing but a huge cylindrical drum provided with a perforated plates at different levels, and from the top water is run through this chamber, a steel chamber, and vacuum is created. So when the vacuum is created, the air and oxygen will be taken away. The water which will be run through the drum, steel drum, will be free from the oxygen. That's called as a mechanical method. As per the syllabus, we need to learn only the chemical method. So this is the first type of the boiler corrosion. So the first type of the boiler corrosion is because of the oxygen. Moving on to the second type of boiler corrosion, that is corrosion due to carbon dioxide. So the amount of carbon dioxide that is permitted in the boiler feed water is less than 1 ppm. If it is exceeding 1 ppm, so then it will create a problem. What is that problem? Let's see. How this carbon dioxide concentration can increase in a boiler feed water means it is because of the dissolved salts present. So intentionally we are not using this hard water. Even though we are using the soft water, continuous operation will result in decomposition of the left out or precipitated bicarbonates of calcium and magnesium to release this carbon dioxide. See, day by day operation, the concentration of these dissolved solids will increase. So at one fine concentration, so it under the heat, it will decompose to produce this carbon dioxide. Here there are two problems. One is a carbonate, it will lead to the scale. Other one is a carbon dioxide. So these two combine together, water and carbon dioxide combine together to give you a carbonic acid. Carbonic acid means the pH is less than 6. The pH of the carbonic acid is less than 6. So if the medium is acidic in nature, the rate of corrosion will increase. Assume initially due to the presence of oxygen, the corrosion is initiated. In a boiler, the corrosion is initiated by the presence of oxygen. The oxygen is not eliminated. So once it is started, if the medium becomes acidic in nature, this we have learnt under the corrosion chapter. So if the medium is water medium. Now it is not water, it is carbonic acid. If the medium becomes less than 6 pH, so the progress of the corrosion increases. Formation of rust will increase. Let me show in the previous slide. See here, corrosion due to dissolved oxygen. When the oxygen level is high, it will cause the corrosion of the boiler metal, convert that into the iron oxide. The nature of this rust formed here, highly porous in nature, highly unstable in nature, and it is highly conducting in nature. It is, see, the nature of the product formed here, the corrosion product formed here, it is porous. Porous means you know. So it will be having more number of pores, porous. And then it is highly unstable. It's not stable, uneven. Pores are there means definitely it is unstable in nature. After instability, what happens? It becomes highly conducting too. Highly conducting. So it makes the oxygen to penetrate easily through it. One more layer of the metal get destructed. Highly conducting. This is the nature of the product, the corrosion product formed. So it will again permit one more layer of the metal to get corroded. The oxygen can penetrate easily through this. So it becomes highly conducting, I said. So moving on to the next slide, you see here. If the pH of the medium is less than 6, then it makes the medium still more highly conducting and rate of corrosion increases. So that is the problem of our dissolved carbon dioxide. Let me repeat. So initially the corrosion is initiated by the dissolved oxygen to form a rust. The nature of the rust is highly conducting, highly unstable and highly porous in nature. And because of the dissolved carbon dioxide, the medium becomes acidic in nature and it will increase the rate of a corrosion, thereby one more layer of the metal gets affected. So this is the problem of carbon dioxide. How do you overcome this? So this problem can be avoided by a chemical method, suitable chemical method. Once the water is tested, that means a boiler technician will collect a sample of water, he'll perform a test, he'll measure the pH, he'll come to know there is a carbonic acid, immediately a calculated amount of ammonium hydroxide. Now this is a base. So since that is a base, we need to use this is a acid. So this is the acid, we need to use a calculated amount of a base. So to neutralize this, a calculated amount of the base should be added. The base is ammonium hydroxide. When a calculated amount of the ammonium hydroxide is added, so as and when the carbon dioxide is formed, see, we know the solid is very much there. It decomposes to form the carbon dioxide. It should not make the medium acidic. Immediately the problem of this should be avoided. Means, so calculated amount of ammonium hydroxide should be added. It will take away all the carbon dioxide to form the ammonium carbonate, a soluble ammonium carbonate. Hence the metal will be free from the corrosion. That's how the problem of carbon dioxide can be avoided. The last type of corrosion due to magnesium chloride. So the dissolved magnesium chloride hydrolyzes to the magnesium hydroxide. This one we understood in a previous problem. It is a cause for the scale. At the same time it releases the HCl. pH of this is less than 1. Highly acidic, highly corrosive. Due to the dissolved oxygen, if the corrosion is initiated, the medium becomes highly acidic, means even though the medium does not contain oxygen, the rate of corrosion increases. So there are two problems here we should understand. Magnesium chloride hydrolyzes to magnesium hydroxide. This precipitate will cause a scale formation. The byproduct HCl, so it is less than 4 pH. As a result, even in the absence of oxygen, dissolved oxygen, it increases the rate of a corrosion if the corrosion is initially initiated. So how to overcome this? Means it is by a simple neutralization reaction. That means by checking the quality of the water, by confirming whether HCl is formed, means immediately a calculated amount of NaOH is added so that the problem of magnesium chloride is avoided. All the three problems we understood. One is oxygen, dissolved oxygen. The second one is carbon dioxide. The third one is magnesium chloride. So the summary of this is the water what we are taking in the boiler should meet all the parameters, and by boiler operation also it will be increasing the concentration of such impurities. Means, so as and when the perfect remedial measure to be followed to safeguard the boiler. So that's about today's discussion. Tomorrow's class we will see BOD and COD. Thank you, students.